You're watching Esports Center, and today we have a special show for you. As we wrapped up the SUNY Chancellor Esports Challenge, we get to hear behind the scenes and what it took to create the SUNY Chancellor Challenge from John Graham, Associate Provost of Student Affairs and University Life. John, thank you so much for joining. I'm super excited to hear your perspective from a SUNY-wide overview of how the Esports SUNY Chancellor Challenge has enlightened and inspired new initiatives going forward in 2020. What's your vision for student life at SUNY?
Well, first of all, I think the most important characteristic that I have in my resume is really to have the care gene. So when you work in student affairs, you really have to care about students, right? And that has to come from within. It's not something that you really can learn. It's something that you really need to be born with. But I do have an awesome responsibility of working with our academic affairs divisions and the other divisions at SUNY. But primarily, I work with student assembly, and that's a group of outstanding men and women, young men and women who represent our student body writ large. And they always discuss the equity and they want the best out of their peers. And they are also primarily in tune with all of the directions and guidance that is coming from system administration. But I want to just tell you very briefly about the portfolio. So in my portfolio, we have veteran affairs. We work with veteran students. We have a child care services portfolio. We have a disability services portfolio. We work with residence life professionals, athletics, intramurals we're interested in. I mean, that's all a part of university life. And then we're really trying to sort of, with esports, we're trying to sort of enhance the face of college competition.
That's wonderful. It sounds like you definitely have a heart of gold and you're in the right place, right mindset for helping the students. You're building a community across many different fronts, and not just aggregating lump sums of student life and just throwing it all in a bucket. You talked about the veterans clubs. You talked about different student bodies that are coming together, including athletic initiatives like digital means with esports and things like that. You know, one of the awesome things about the SUNY Chancellor Esports Challenge was the opportunity it gave in such a critical time to come together so quickly and produce funds for the hashtag SUNY Together initiative, which is a part of your overall student funding programs. What was the turnout? What was the funds that were contributed as a result of this tournament towards SUNY Together?
Well, the initial installment was a $10,000 level of support that came from Extreme Sports, I believe. And that $10,000 installment was really, really good. And the chancellor was so warm and gracious to match that with $10,000, which gives us a $20,000 launch, if you will. But I think the most important thing within it is that it's the underlying factors of the funding. Yes, it's about sports, right? But it's also really about students, right? And helping the students rise to another level of quality. And as our students are doing that, some of them every now and again, they find themselves in these sort of extenuating circumstances. And so this, SUNY Stand Together, having those resources available for emergency funds on college campuses is mission critical, because our students find themselves every now and again, they find themselves in a situation where they need support from the campus. And these emergency funds become mission critical for the students and their families.
Well, that's wonderful that we were able to contribute to that from Extreme Networks. We were honored to contribute, and from a SUNY-wide perspective, to be able to provide those funds back to those students that need it most is a wonderful thing. Now, you had over 500 students join, or approximately 500 students join the SUNY Chancellor Esports Challenge. How did that measure up against expectations when you all decided so quickly to put this together?
Great question. It really exceeded expectations because, quite frankly, I remember I was on the call meeting when the chancellor had made when she launched the idea, and she shared the idea with her executive leadership team, and I said, "Oh wow, it's probably be just a couple of students that'll be interested, maybe 100 or so." But the next thing you know, we have a critical mass of students, and our students are so resilient. They have a way of communicating far and beyond what any of us can imagine. And one thing about a good idea, a good idea always leads to a phone call or a text message. And the next thing you know, we have a critical mass of students that are engaged. But I have to tell you, we have some exceptional individuals like those who are on the panel with me today, Kyle and Charlie. I mean, these are exceptional individuals that really help sherpa the great work that is taking place in this space. And we really want to continue this. We want to sort of grow this out a little bit. And my biggest question for us, as we go forward, is how do we recruit more students like over the summer? Because we have about 2.5 months to sort of build some serious momentum here with esports. It can be a part of the new normal at SUNY.
So it sounds like what you're thinking is going beyond the SUNY Chancellor Esports Challenge based on the response that you got from the students, that you would like to incorporate it into a distant learning model for virtual student engagement, incorporating this into a larger program, perhaps the SUNY Esports League. And you're right, I don't think there's anybody better than Charlie and Kyle to chime in here and help share. Charlie, he mentioned what about recruitment? How do we build that up over the course of the summer to prepare for the fall? I think that's a perfect question for you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so that's something I've actually been giving some thought to, is we have created this amazing online community so far for this tournament. And one of the most frequent questions that I've received from tournament administrators and tournament administrators for their questions to me, and there are colleges asking, hey, are you going to leave this up, or is this going to leave once the tournament's done? And I said, no way. We have created so much connective tissue here between these colleges for esports. If we were to get rid of this, it would be terrible. So we're going to keep this up, and we're going to keep it running. We have people, as I'm sitting in the call right now, that are joining in, coming into the Discord, starting to talk with other people and get connected. I see this Discord server as a fantastic resource to continue connecting colleges. But specifically, I want to target some of the colleges that don't have varsity programs. We had over 16 community colleges come in and participate in this tournament where they have no infrastructure, no creation. They said, hey, we want to get our kids involved. We want to get our players on the field. How do we do it? And I just said, sign up here. Here you go. So what I think going forward is we have so many other community colleges that I know of that could participate and I know want to, but didn't have that coordination. I think given time, given resources, I could reach out, connect, and get those people involved as well.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of resources, we're talking about inclusivity that extends well beyond just the varsity teams. I would love to hear, Kyle, what does it take from a resource perspective to have an esports program, to participate in these games? SUNY Canton has an amazing esports facility, arena, and it's admirable. I'm sure that every college would love to have that. But in terms of immediate gain, immediate benefit, and inclusivity, what are the resources that you would need to extend an esports program like this across all of these SUNY schools?
Well, that's the beautiful thing about esports, Erica. The entry barrier is quite low. It ranges the gamut from having a home PC or a console station to the extreme end where you have $1 million arena that is replicating the spectator experience that you see in traditional sports. So it really depends on the goals of the institution and is it student involvement or is it competitive nature, wanting to have a Division I type sports experience for their students.
John, hearing from Charlie and Kyle and their experiences and expertise around building an esports program, supporting an esports program, how does that give you optimism as you start to plan ahead for the fall semester?
It gives me a great deal of optimism, and I'm really delighted to be listening to Charlie and Kyle's responses because both of these individuals are really highly intelligent in this space. And one of the things I was hoping that we would get to at some point in this esports phenomenon, if we can call it that, is that the critical legitimizer is going to be making sure that we have females involved, right? We need to make sure that we're doing that. And how do we go about recruiting them? How do we go about having sort of mixed teams, right? Male, female teams, and kind of create that sort of esprit de corps that I spoke of a little bit earlier. Everything that we do, I believe that we are sort of rebuilding a university, right? SUNY system is comprised of 64 campuses. And essentially what COVID-19 is really asking us to do in a very forced-handed way is rebuild yourself. Right? Reimagine yourself, rebuild your institution. And so if we find ourselves, let's say, having students stay in remote access, now the question becomes, we have to build a culture of communication with our athletic departments, right? Which I think is very interesting to do. And I think our colleague, once he joins us, he will be able to help us define that space and how we go about doing that. Because like everything else, we want the event, but we have to focus on the process by which we can make that happen. And so in terms of in doing that, I think that's really important. But I do know at 40,000 feet, this is something that the chancellor would like to see happen. This is something that those of us who work in the residence life professions would like to see happen. I'm in conversations with our res life colleagues all the time, as well as our fraternities and sorority groups. And they're asking, you know, what is going to be our sort of social and intellectual appetite, right? That will complement our remote learning access points. So while they're in remote learning and matriculating, if you will, they also need time to sort of use the other aspects of their brain to be competing. Now, one of the things about esports that I exceptionally like is that, you know, you don't always get the win, right? And guess what? When you're playing any sport, you don't always get the win. And when you're at your place of employment, you don't always get the win. And so there's something else that we can really learn and help our students appreciate about competition. And that is this whole notion of resilience, right? You come back, you recalibrate, you figure out, how did Kyle beat me that time? How did Charlie beat me that time? You know, and then you ask yourselves, hey, you know, I need to figure out a better way to strategize and plan and prepare, which is the very same things that you need to do for your classes and the very same things you need to do in the workplace. So I think it's an awesome time for SUNY to be in this space of esports.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Charlie and Kyle can speak to that better than I can firsthand. But the diversity of students that are involved in esports, female and male, and of all backgrounds and interests that they would like to see going forward is something that has been illuminated throughout this tournament.
It's very easy to tie this to academic programs. You know, not just retention rates and those types of things that Randy talks about, but specifically to academic programs and curriculum. You know, the leadership skills, the math skills. You know, I've told this story before. I love the story of the one student who stood up and said, I hate math. I've hated all my math classes. I hated statistics. But then I started to understand that I could apply statistical analysis to improve my gameplay in Hearthstone. Because they build decks with various characteristics, and he could apply statistical methods to improve his gameplay. And those types of stories are incredible to me. That's really what excites me about esports and how we can connect it to the institutions and to higher ed in general. I think it's very unique to esports.
Wow, that's a very interesting phenomenon. The first thing I thought about when you said that, Kyle, was that poor professor who was trying to teach the theory. You should put a sticker, hashtag, you should be a gamer.
Taras, what about you as you work closely with John? How would you plan on building a common means of communication for, say, a SUNY-wide esports league to engage the student bodies across multiple schools?
So with the distance learning situation that we're in now, but well before that at SUNY system, there's been a real push for a refined online learning curriculum platform. And the investment's been going on for quite some time now. So I think there's a model in that, and there's a model in the actions that Charlie took and with his team to develop this tournament in a singularity for a place to hold these discussions. You know, we can use Discord as that example. But then the outreach for 64 campuses across the SUNY system, and teaching them and helping them learn together what the opportunities are. Working with John at the system office, I think that's one of the great things that we're privileged to is there's always a consistent level of interest in these types of activities across the SUNY system, but the resources available at all the campuses are drastically different. You know, we have some schools that are very small in terms of student body and staff body, and we have schools that are ginormous in student body and staff body. So the way that we bridge the gaps between what they have available to do on their own and what they need assistance with is pretty wide. And when we come together and build, if we were to come together and build a community for discussion and learning, we could see a lot of almost like parental guidance where the big schools could take the hands of those. We know there's this interest, as you mentioned, with the community college success in this tournament. So those schools that do have the interest, but maybe don't know where to get started, I and John and our team members at the system office could really help bring them together to have the big guys teach the little guys, and then, build some sort of a seamless platform where competition's the same across the board, and you don't have to be separated by the resources you have available or the resources you don't have available.
I just wanted to offer just a quick thought here. We have SUNY Global, right? And in SUNY Global, when we went into the sort of COVID-19 pandemic, we had to, as a system, we had to basically recall nearly 100,000 students, SUNY students that were studying abroad. And so I'm wondering, how might we be able to infuse our esports phenomena into our SUNY Global Affairs portfolio at some appropriate time? It may not be this moment, but I do think that there's an opportunity we should do that, because as you mentioned about a sense of belonging, these students have friends and loved ones and caregivers before they leave the country to go to Italy or wherever they decide to go. But I'm wondering if they can compete globally while they are away. Is that possible to do, Charlie?
Oh yeah. Like, in terms of traditional athletics, it's so different, right? Because if you say you want to go play basketball against somebody, you want to go play baseball against somebody, you have to move your body there. Esports, no, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You could be all the way across the world, and you could just play on a joint server. It takes very little back-end support to make that happen. It's seamless, and I work normally with a tournament called the ECAC, the Eastern Collegiate Athletic Conference.
Oh yeah.
They play all across the Eastern Seaboard, and now spreading into the West and Midwest. All those are run simultaneously. All those are run seamlessly. They use League Spot as well, and they use Discord as well. Basically, geographically, esports is immune to those limitations.
I love it. I love it. And, I was thinking about the announcement that California made about a week ago, that system is going to sort of be in a remote access or distance learning platform for the fall. And I'm just wondering, again, as a little bit of a goalpost for us, SUNY versus, the California system, or the Georgia system, or the Texas system. I mean, I really want this to be like a big new way of looking at sports writ large. And I know that we're going 40,000 feet in the air. We just were flying a little bit of a crop duster when we started. But, our elevation points are increasing. We're increasing our altitude each and every day in this space. And I really kind of want to make sure that we have the imagination, but then also to go above and beyond those expectations.
Extreme Networks is very proud to be helping and coordinating what we can to enable the esports experience. And one thing that you'll notice about esports as you go through and build these programs, which I think your vision is grand and absolutely warranted and absolutely feasible. Esports is a worldwide phenomenon. And I think you guys are in a perfect position with 64 campuses to start the trend, because that esports league would not be, any small task. It would be a large group of competitors. And that's really what the students want. They want a strong competitive pool to go up against. Yeah. And then to take that, be the leaders in that with your 64 campus strong esports program. The key is, when you're gaming, my favorite comment or quote from Justin Brooks, one of the shoutcasters at SUNY Canton, was, "Don't be that guy." And he was referring to, don't be that guy who has bad esports etiquette, which, by the way, John, is a thing.
Oh yeah, there's esports etiquette.
Is that right?
There's esports etiquette. He says, don't be that guy who ruins the experience because your stream keeps cutting in and out.
Oh, wow. I like that.
Unlike traditional athletics,
right?
You may not need access points on the football field, but you certainly need a strong connection when you're streaming and playing a game. So,
yeah. Well, I will tell you this, Erica. When I went to college my freshman year, the coach yelled something out to all of us athletes. He said, "Hey, you guys are supposed to be in shape. You don't come to the university to get in shape. You get in shape before you come to the university." I never forgot that. So I think there's a little bit of corollary here when it comes to esports, right? You got to have your bandwidth. You got to have your equipment.
Yeah.
Come ready to play. Come ready to play.
And I just want to compliment the SUNY schools real quick, because I've played at these high competitive levels in esports before. Not to toot my own horn, but at one point last semester, before it all kind of hit the fan, I was top 200 in North America for playing a game called Overwatch. I can see skill when I see it. Every single player, quarterfinals up. What we're talking less than top, maybe 0.1% of the players in the world. So SUNY has incredible players, skill level players that if they really wanted to, they could go pro if they had the support. So oh yeah, SUNY has the skills. They have players in there that have the skill. I mean, it's there.
It's impressive to see what the skill sets, not only from SUNY Canton that I was able to get more intimately aware of, but across the competitors at SUNY wide to see the results of the tournament. It was quite intense. And so it is nothing short of the intensity level that you would expect of any athletic program.
You know what I always like about the SUNY system is, in a competitive sense, 64 schools makes a perfect bracket for a once-a-year competition.
Oh, yeah.
If we can get 64 participants in there, we have our own March Madness competition in the esports arena. And, you know, whatever we can do to help bring that together, this thing could be twice, 3, 4, 5 times as large as it was this time, as a great, you know, using this as a great model for future growth.
That's a great point. You guys had the tournament in May this year. Could we have a May Madness every year?
Hey, you know what's interesting about your comment, Erica? You know, even though COVID was out, you know, probably late last December, November, December, and then we had sort of January, it was talks about China and all this stuff, but it wasn't until March that we actually had the madness across SUNY. You know what I mean? It was metaphorically March when we had our madness.
True. Okay, so we can expect some sort of madness in one of the months, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we want to see more coming this fall. The students are itching for it. They couldn't wait to compete. Hopefully we'll see more of this in the fall, and I'm sure we'll see even more of that incorporated into the digital model of your curriculums going forward for distant learning. Well, thank you all for such great insights and tips. And like I said, SUNY Esports League, we're ready to see it. I can't wait to see what comes in the fall.
Thank you so much. This has been a great opportunity for us today.
Thank you. Appreciate you joining. That's all we have for Esports Center today as a wrap up to the SUNY Chancellor Esports Challenge.